Welcome to the Keeping the Nostalgia Live show. I am your host, Billy Powell. And as you can see with us is the legend, Tim Stoddard. Tim is one of, man, I think I can only count him on one finger. Someone who's won an Indiana high school basketball state championship with East Chicago, Washington. He's won an NCAA basketball championship with the Wolfpack in 1974, North Carolina State. And he's also has a World Series ring. He could be the Liberace with all of his rings from the Baltimore Orioles in 1983. Tim, thank you for spending some time with us. I know you got a busy schedule, and we appreciate you spending time with us and sharing the nostalgia and the memories of your life in the game of sports.
Thanks, Billy. My pleasure.
Tim, tell us a little bit about growing up. Who introduced you to sports? Tell us maybe a little bit about your family and what was it like in the East Chicago area when you were growing up?
I had two older brothers and a younger sister. So I was the younger brother that kind of hung around with them all the time, got in their way. You know, the last guy picked on the team. But, we all played sports all the time, whatever season it was. We were doing it, whether it was baseball, basketball, football. We were out playing in the field somewhere, having a good time, trying to stay out of trouble. Kept us out of trouble, is what it did.
What did you have a basketball hoop at the house?
No, we had an awning that we used. And they were rough games. They were really rough games, but we had parks everywhere back then. So, we'd go over to the park and play all the time and do that. For baseball, we, had our big X drawn up on the library wall and all that kind of stuff. So, we, like I said, whatever the sport was, whatever time of year it was, myself, my friends, my brothers, all their friends, we were always playing something.
Living in Houston, Texas, being born and raised in Indiana, but living here in Houston, Texas for the past 20, 25 years, people are like, why do you have shorts on? I'm like, it's 45 or 50 degrees. It's warm. We can go outside and do whatever we want.
Oh, absolutely. Playing baseball up here and this stuff.
Exactly. What, so, there was no AAU ball back then. Did you guys, the core of that great state championship team, did you grow up with that core? Did you go to grade school and then middle school and then on to high school with that core? Or how did that work?
A couple of us were together in grade school, but most of us met kind of the high school back then. We didn't have a junior high. It was 7th through 12th grade. So we started playing all together when we were 7th grade, all the way through there. So we got to know each other pretty well for 6 years.
What did you kind of we'll start with basketball first, and then I want to go to baseball. But did you have a favorite basketball player that you liked watching when you were a youngster? Was there a college that you followed, or was there somebody's game that you kind of emulated your game by? And then, of course, the same question with baseball. I'm assuming we're all baseball fans upon the geography of where we live.
Yeah, I probably couldn't pick one player that I ever followed anywhere. I watched all the games. My friends were the guys that knew everybody's statistics. The guy would have bat and they would know the statistic. I did not have that. I did not have that capability. But I had a bunch of friends like that. They had everybody's baseball cards, stuff like that. I was the guy that wanted to be out and playing all the time. So I was the guy that, let's go out and then play, and then we come back and go over, watch the baseball games, things like that. Obviously, growing up in Chicago, you're watching the Cubs and the White Sox mostly. But in a sense of, say, one specific player, no, I can't say I had one that I tried to emulate or be like. I just wanted to play.
6'7" or 6'8", and when did your major growth spurt happen when you were growing up?
I was probably 6'5" by the time I was a freshman. That was a long string bead. I crept up a couple inches after that, but I was kind of tall when I was young, so it was hard to buy clothes.
Did you, as a youngster, did you have a favorite sport, or you didn't care as long as you were playing either baseball or basketball?
kind of like I said, I mean, it was whatever season it was, we were playing. You know, we'd get together, play football when it was football season. It's just kind of the way you grew up back then. Wasn't a thing of, with stuff now where you've got to pick and choose. You just rotated whatever season it was. So it was football season when it was football. It was basketball season there, basketball. Then go right into baseball. So you just had that constant rotation of sports that we played, and all the time.
I would stand in the mirror with the hairbrush and be lip syncing to music and fantasizing what I was going to do later on in life. As a youngster, did you have a dream of what you wanted to do? Was it professional athletics, or was it something else? And
well, you dream about that all the time. Making a final shot in a basketball game. Either striking a guy out or hitting a home run. You played all those fantasies when you're playing all your games and doing things. So, did I know I would end up going to play college basketball or play professional baseball? No, down deep, you hope and pray, you kind of leave that as your fantasy. And I tell people now, I says, don't ever lose your fantasies, but you kind of got to figure out where you are and see how everything falls and breaks. And, it takes hard work and being with the right people and that kind of stuff more than, I just want to do this and this is what's going to happen.
When did you realize that you guys had something pretty special there? I mean, your guys' team is always in the conversation with one of the best all-time state champions in the state of Indiana, along with, Big George McGinnis and the 69 Washington Continentals, and of course, Oscar Robertson and some of those great Addicts teams. When did you know you had something special? And tell us about the atmosphere of playing at East Chicago, Washington.
I would say probably my junior year. I think that's the year East Chicago Roosevelt ended up winning the championship, and they went undefeated. They had Bradley then. That was the only games we lost were to them that year. And we knew we were pretty good then. I mean, we had the speed, the size, we had guys that could shoot. So we kind of knew then. So then we kind of went into that 71 season, our senior year. We were kind of ready to try to make a run for everything. So
was it a little bit difficult up there in that area? Because you guys would beat each other up.
Yeah, there was a lot of good basketball up here. I mean, you had to go through the Gary schools. Obviously, the schools in our conference were all pretty good. So yeah, it was tough getting out of this region, getting down to Lafayette and play at Purdue for the state sectional. So it was kind of a tough road, but I think Gary West was really good that year, our senior year, and we really had a good tough game with them. So and that was the one that kind of let us go down to the semi-state.
What are your memories, or do you think of them very often, of the Final Four and playing on the historic, Butler Fieldhouse, now known as Hinkle Fieldhouse?
I mean, you've heard the stories, obviously, as you've listened to games on the radio. I remember listening to Rick Mount play on the radio. I was a kid with a little earplug in the ear back then. Things like that. The fact of playing two games in one day, the afternoon and the evening, I always thought was very unique and very tough and demanding. So I just thought it was special to get to that point, and the fact that Indiana at that time still had only one state champion. I remember I think the only game we ever got out rebounded that year was against Rossville, and I don't think they had a guy over 6'2". And we played them in the afternoon at Lafayette. And I remember after that game, my knees were sore because if you were at half court, they'd block you out. Very fundamental, very good, scrappy team, but that's what you played against. And it's kind of nice to say we were the only champion in this state.
Attending Broad Ripple High School, we were in the Hinkle sectional. So, we played on the Hinkle basketball floor several times. And I have a 2-inch
Okay.
vertical. But I always felt like the Hinkle Fieldhouse floor gave me a 4-inch vertical. Did it give you a little bounce? Did you think?
It had that little spring to it all the time. Those portable floors always had that little extra bounce to it. So yeah, it was good. I needed that too, trust me.
Tell us, when did we know recruiting is not like it is today, but when did you get on that radar? And do you remember a couple of those first schools that you got offers from, and were they both for basketball and baseball?
Yeah, pretty much everywhere I was looking for both ways, sports. North Carolina State, where I went, recruited Indiana a lot back then. Pete Oxel, who was our assistant coach at the time, he had gone to North Carolina State. We probably had 3-4 guys out of the Northwest area there that had gone down there. So there was some connection. Norm Sloan was an Indiana man. So he had connections. So that kind of started that. But the other schools I was looking at, I looked at Texas and Arizona State, and that probably more baseball oriented schools at the time. But I wanted to do both. I wanted to get a little bit warmer weather than up here by Chicago. So, I was kind of looking for that type of setup. And the fact that Sam Esposito, who was a South Side of Chicago guy, and he went to University of Indiana, played 3 sports down there. He kind of understood. He was the assistant basketball coach and the head baseball coach. So it made my transition down there work very easily, going from one sport to another.
Before heading to North Carolina State, was there the possibility that you could have started out in minor league or professional baseball at that time, or?
I'd like to say yes. I was getting a lot of scouts out to games, things like that. It was really cold one day. I kind of hurt my arm. I kind of had to sit back a couple of weeks, but then came back. There were still a couple of teams that were interested, but where I was supposed to be they told me I'd be kind of a really high draft pick. It kind of went down to the point where I was just going to end up signing as a free agent guy. And at that point, I kind of decided I wanted to, give it a try. I'd go to college, get an education, play there, and see what happens. It worked out pretty good.
Of course it did. Was there any kind of, there's a lot of people that have left the state of Indiana to go and pursue sports in other states. Was there any kind of backlash, or anybody give you kind of a hard time for leaving the state, or?
No, the schools were recruiting me and stuff like that. Purdue had, gotten in contact in Indiana, but it was something that with wanting to play baseball, so I was looking more that direction. So I was looking more a little bit warmer weather scenario for myself.
So what was it like that first year on campus at North Carolina State? Did you feel like you had made the right decision, or was it kind of scary at first? And how did you kind of ease yourself in?
Well, I think anytime you go away to school, it's a little bit scary to start, but when you're in sports, it's almost like getting a family, handed to you that you're part of all the time. So when I first got down there, that was the last year of freshman basketball. So after that, they kind of went just to the varsity. So we had a freshman team, and we became very close, great friends, all that. So, it was just, you got a new family automatically right away. So it was really pretty easy once you got there.
When did you feel like you had something special down there with the Wolfpack?
When I saw David Thompson play.
Okay, so I guess that you can kind of second the opinion on the Phil Spence story of him putting the 4 quarters up there and taking that dollar off.
Well, I never saw that, but I've seen him get off. I've seen him up there. And I remember Phil telling that story and that, and, when Phil ended up coming to the state, we'd have to take turns guarding David a lot of times. and that's probably the best thing that happened to us is trying to guard him. He was such a good player, and we complimented the team, complimented each other so much, and everybody kind of knew their role. And but David was such a good player. I mean, he could shoot, he could pass. There wasn't anything he really couldn't do. So it was fun watching him play, and it was fun playing with him. It was really tough having to guard him in practice, but it made me a better player. So we still have a big team text machine that goes out all the time. That, guys are constantly staying in touch with each other. So it's very, very nice.
What was North Carolina State baseball like during your career there?
A couple years before, they went to the World Series. Mike Caldwell was there at the time. We went to the regionals every year, could never quite get out of the regionals to get to the World Series, but we went to the regionals my last 3 years there. So it was competitive. We had some players drafted, get pretty high. So Sammy, like I said, Sammy Esposito was a former pro player. He kind of knew the ins and outs and what to do, and he did a pretty good job coaching us up.
I was watching yesterday and doing a little research for the show. It's kind of even not research; it's more of just pleasure watching some of that stuff. I watched your guys' battle, of course, with UCLA, and what are your memories of that game? I mean, do you still flash back to them, or did it go by so fast that just winning the national championship?
Well, we knew we'd have to go through UCLA. I mean, there was no doubt about that. So we had played them. I think that was our only loss that year. We played them around Christmas time in St. Louis, and that was a pretty good game right till the end. So we knew we can play with them the whole time. So as good as they were coached, Bill Walton, the team that they had was pretty spectacular. Another teammate of mine from East Chicago, Pete Turkovich, was on that team. So it was just a great game. Don't really like going into overtime when you got to play games like that. But again, we had Tommy Burleson, who was a great player and played a lot of years in the NBA. And with David, we knew we can pretty much play with anybody. So it was once we won that one, we knew we had a really good shot to win.
You guys had a lot of Indiana ties on that national championship team.
Yeah, I mean, Monty Tao was, from was it Conway?
Converse.
Converse, that's right, Converse. Monty will get me now. And yeah, I mean, like I said, Norm was from here, things like that. I think they had Steve Lake. There was quite a few guys that, like I said, they recruited this area, a lot back then. So, it was pretty exciting.
The buzzer hits 0 and you're national champions, and you've got you're also a state champion in Indiana, and Indiana high school basketball was the thing back there in the United States of America. What were those initial feelings, and how do you come down from a high like that?
Well, really, it was a thing you don't quite realize what you accomplished at that point. You do kind of later on in life. But right then it was just kind of winning there, and that's what your goal was. But as it went on, and you start realizing, what you're able to accomplish, you start realizing that, pretty special feat that was accomplished.
I get to ask these questions, so people will be mad at me for asking these questions. But was Bill Walton a trash talker?
I don't know. I thought I beat him up pretty good. I had Meyer and Wilkes most of the game, but when Tommy came out of the game, I ended up getting Walton quite a bit. He was a great player. He can jump so fast, double jump, things like that. It was tremendous. He didn't really say a whole lot, but they had a great team. There's no doubt about it.
Did you get to shake hands with Coach John Wooden, and what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, obviously, you know what he accomplished, going into the whole thing, being from Indiana, there's, some history there, but yeah, it's just admiration, everything he's done, the teams he took, and then as you get older and you start reading the stories and the legacies, and everything that he's done, with people on and off the field. On and off the court. He's an amazing man.
So you've won a national championship in basketball, and a lot of guys are thinking, what am I going to do with my pro career in basketball? You go right back into baseball.
Yeah, that was the thing with Esposito up there is, okay, well, you won that one. Let's get ready for this one. And I missed big portion of the baseball season because, we always went kind of deep in the spring, and he never lets you touch a baseball, during that time. So the first time I'd pick up a baseball was after, basketball season was done, and, I'd get my glove out of the closet and go out to the field for the first time. So, yeah, it was, just kind of went with the routine.
And how does that baseball career start? How does that get jump started?
We're playing there. We did real well. Again, thought I had a shot to get drafted in high school, but didn't because of an injury. We're going through there. I was playing in the CL in Bloomington normal area for my summer league. So there were scouts and things out there. That's what I did in the summertime. So there was some teams out there looking, things like that. I got drafted after that year we won the championship, but I didn't sign because that was my junior year, and decided not to sign. I wanted to go back and have another year at school, and they didn't offer enough either. But then I'd give it a shot, and then I got drafted. That back then, if you got drafted and didn't sign, you went into a winter draft. I went into the winter draft and got picked by the White Sox. So when the next season was over, my senior season was over, we were playing at South Carolina in the regional. South Carolina beat us. They ended up going to the World Series. And the scouts from the White Sox, came over and talked to me, and they wanted to sit down and have a meeting, and said that they had the rights to me, and would I sit down and talk with them and see what we could do and work out. And I kind of liked what they offered. I knew basketball was interested in me. There were some teams that said they would, you hear through the grapevine that they're going to draft you or this, but I wasn't going to be a number one pick or this. I was kind of the grunt on the team. So I kind of had to pick and choose on which one I thought that I might have a longer career in, probably more than anything. And I thought baseball was that one that kind of I chose. So I was pretty happy when it was all over.
So you played for the White Sox in '75?
Yes.
And what was that like playing? Once again, you're in your backyard. Your story gets better and better. So, now you're playing in your backyard where you listen to probably White Sox radio, White Sox games. You end up playing for the Cubs, listen to Cubs games on the radio. And now you're pitching in Chicago. That's got to be a goosebumps.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. It was, the White Sox, they weren't real good at the time, but, I get called up that year in September to go up to the big club, and I'm sitting there, and first time I was sitting in the bullpen, I got to see Rich Gossage and Terry Forster warm up, get ready to go in a game. And my first thought is, what in the world am I doing here? You never know how hard you throw yourself because you're never facing it. But when I'm watching these two guys throw, I've never seen anybody throw so hard in my life. And I'm just going, boy, I don't know what's going to happen here. But, again, you kind of go through it and work hard and see what happens. And it worked out okay.
Were mom and dad athletic, or did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had a brother that played in college, the Defiance in Ohio, D3, played baseball and football. My other brother joined the Army, and back then there weren't a lot of female sports, so my sister didn't really play anything. So, not really. My dad was 6 foot, worked hard. We ended up in this area. They ended up in this area. He was in the Navy during the war and came and worked in the steel mills when he got out of the war. So that's how we kind of ended up in East Chicago.
Did you have a good relationship with your father?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He was the president of the Little League, and, would give us anything we can. He worked a 16-hour shift so that, we can play sports and do the things and have a good childhood. So absolutely, my parents were tremendous.
Was mom or dad in the stands in '75 with your White Sox debut?
Yeah, they came up there all the time. So even later on, they'd come up Cubs games and things like that. So yeah, it was, they were definitely, rooting for me and doing stuff. We won the national championship of basketball. They were down there. They came down to, North Carolina. We played that year in Greensboro with the championship. Went down there. They supported me the whole time.
Tell us a little bit about your journey in baseball and what it was like. I know it's a long journey, but give us some of the highlights of what it was like on some of your stops and what were some of your favorite stops. I'm assuming probably the Orioles and the Cubbies, because the Cubbies won the division that year, and then of course you won the World Series with you were in the World Series in '79 with the Orioles, and then of course you guys won the World Series championship in '83. Just give us a little brief, how fun was that? Was it once again, we with like a whirlwind, kind of like your state championship in Indiana and your national championship in North Carolina?
Well, when you first sign, you're overly excited because you're dreaming big leagues right away, even though you end up going into minors. The one thing that the White Sox offered me, which really helped me persuade to go baseball, was that they put me on the major league roster, and I got to start in Double-A, so I got to miss some of the lower stops. But riding on buses for 12, 14, 16 hours is not fun, no matter what level you're at. So, you end up doing that. I went to Knoxville, Tennessee, and it was their Double-A team, and played there that season until the end, and then came up at the end of the year. But it was, it's like kind of eye-opening on how tough it is to kind of go through it, and everybody's got the same dream. So it's not that you root against your teammates, but you definitely are trying to outplay them all the time, besides beat the teams that you're playing against.
Were you ever, you're out there getting ready to go on the mound, or you're practicing or warming up, and did you ever just you saw a legend that was playing baseball before you win the national championship in North Carolina State and get into baseball? Were you ever in awe, or like wow, I can't believe I'm pitching against this guy, or I can't believe I got to meet that guy? What were some of your wow moments on who you met, who you faced, and how was that?
Well, I mean, obviously, Goose and I ended up becoming really good friends. Gossett, when I first met him, I was, very, very impressed. But in the sense of awe, I don't know if you can ever be a professional athlete and say I'm in awe. At that point, you've got to sit there and say I'm as good as you, and because you're going to compete against them. When you're done, you're in awe, or before you're there, you're in awe. But at that point in your life, you're just trying to be one of them. And you go over from there. I go over to Baltimore. You meet Jim Palmer, and I played against Eddie Murray a little bit in the minors. But you start meeting these guys and playing against them. Reggie Jackson and all those guys, and you're competing and playing against them. And it's when it's all done is when you sit back and you kind of sit there and say, you're a pretty lucky guy.
Can you give us a couple of sentences on Earl Weaver?
Wow. Got to keep them clean, right?
Well, you see the guy in the background, you see Coach Knight in the background, and how crazy, and you've heard all of those stories. I mean, I'm assuming Earl may have been a little, from what I have read and from what I understand, may have been a little crazy, or just.
Yeah, Earl was he was one of these guys that, would constantly kind of yell out at the umpires and you in the dugout, or whistle. He had that whistle that would just, just ear piercing all the time. And, he knew what he wanted to do. The great thing about Earl is you knew what your position on the team was, what innings you were going to pitch, or when you'd pinch hit, or, you'd see who was pitching in the lineup that day. And if you were a platoon guy, whether you were playing or not, things like that. coming out to the mound early, he'd sit there and ask, what in the hell were you doing? Take the ball and, you're gone. Yeah, I mean, he was a great manager. He kind of taught you how to play.
A battery mate, Rick Dempsey, what was he like?
Dempsey had a lot of energy. I roomed with Dempsey in spring training a lot. So Dempsey was obviously one of the best defensive catchers in the game. I think he played 4 decades. I think he got in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even a little bit in the 90s. So he can catch and throw. The thing that I remember most about Rick was living with him in spring training. There was a bat on every wall in front of every mirror in the apartment that we rented. So anytime you opened a door, you had to sit there and like peek in to make sure he wasn't swinging a bat, getting ready, working on his stance. But as a catcher, he could handle it. He was a great receiver. So you just kind of put the game and trust in his hands.
When did the stash come about?
Moment I left school. When I left school, when you're able to grow one. So I had that for a long time. Probably shaved it about, 15, 20 years ago.
I can just picture you and Goose talking about stashes.
Yeah. Well, this was a little more wiry. I tried to keep mine a little more trimmer than his, but not much.
I love Sparky Lyles too.
Oh yeah. Now, when you're playing, it's, it's like working the night job. You got to figure out how to entertain yourself all the time during the day.
Did you feel like when you were with the Cubbies that, man, lightning's been striking? I mean, Indiana high school basketball state champion, NCAA basketball champion, national champion, World Series in 1983. We're going to win a World Series with the Cubbies. You were on a roll.
Yeah, it was, in the year before I was with the Orioles. So, we won the World Series. So it was I got traded to the Cubs the week before spring training was up. So I came here and I sat down and, obviously following them and growing up in Chicago area, the Cubs, were always picked to be last and this or that. And I got over there and met the players and this and that. And Dallas Green was the general manager at the time. He had obviously made a ton of moves, brought a bunch of guys from Philly over, who was, playing pretty well at the time. And I sat down and I looked at it and I go, boy, this is really a pretty good team. And it's just, they made a couple of trades. They brought in Sutcliffe during the year and Eckersley. And, it just turned into a great ball club. And yeah, you start thinking, boy, this team really has a shot. And the city was nuts. I mean, when you first went to the park, you'd have 5,000 people there. By the halfway through the season when we started winning, it's like, you're getting there at 9 o'clock for a day game to start stretching and doing hitting. And, they're lined up down the street trying to get into the bleachers already. So, yeah, it was a very interesting turn of the season and turn of a franchise there.
I'm going back a little bit. What was it first like to get your first bubblegum card? Your first baseball.
Start laughing because I used to buy those and had them all in my spokes in my car, the whole scenario. I always told my mom I bought them for the bubble gum. Yeah, it was kind of impressive to kind of see that. And and as you're playing, obviously you're getting more and more of them, and you see what kind of business and industry it is. Kind of an amazing setup.
As you were going through high school, college, professional baseball, were you did you collect stuff along the way? Like, do you have memorabilia that, you wanted just to save those memories?
No, not really. I mean, I ended up getting stuff for things that I was doing for, if I was helping out with a charity event or something like that, where you can sit and auction things like that. But I never really kept a whole lot of it. I got it all up here. And that was the important thing for me is, kind of what I saw. I got a lot of my own stuff that, I've had. My kids want that kind of stuff whenever, I'm gone, I guess. And, but yeah, you really didn't want to bother people, but, you tried to help out friends and do things that, were trying to get stuff. Everybody I ever played with was fine signing things or doing things. I never had anybody that I played with that said, no, I don't want to sign that for you. I know there are guys, but I never played with any of them. So it was kind of that.
What
Up here's the big part.
what was your what stop did you make in baseball where the fans were the most knowledgeable or the most um, passionate, and what were some of the places that you really hated the pitch and the fans were just like passionate for their team, but they would do anything to throw off the incoming team?
On that one, I'd probably say St. Louis. When I was with the Cubs, when they came down, they hated the Cubs. So, I mean, that was a huge rivalry, back then. I mean, it still is. So that one, in a sense of probably one of the tougher places to play and do things, in a sense of great places to play. I was lucky enough to play in Baltimore when we were winning 95, 100 games a year. Place was always packed. I go to New York and I played in New York for 3 years. And, when you're at Yankee Stadium and you're going through their stuff, the history and the memorabilia and the people that are there all the time, all that stuff's kind of amazing. So that's pretty good. When you're out there warming up by the statues out in the bullpens and things like that, that's a lot of baseball history.
Okay, take us to the at bat where you hit a home run.
We're in San Diego. Pete Lacoste was pitching with San Francisco at the time. So he throws me a 1-2 slider. That's a strike, and the umpire called it a ball. Pete was mad. I was going like, "Ooh, thank you." Then he threw a fastball right down the middle, and I hit it. And hit it good. And the thing I remember most then is Chili Davis, who is a friend of mine now, is playing center field, and he goes sprinting back. So I'm running out of his box as hard as I can because I figured, I'm not going to hit a home run, So I'm running back as hard as I can, and then he pulls up at the warning track, turns around, starts laughing as I'm kind of heading in towards second base because it went about, 10 rows deep or something. And he knew it was gone. He just wanted to make me run. So, it felt pretty good coming off. I was a good BP guy, but, that's BP. And I hit in college a little bit and that. So, got the bat on one. Swinging, you never know what happens, is what they say.
Would you have liked to have had that ball, or do you know what happened to that ball?
I would like to have it, but I don't know where it was or whatever. But at that point I wasn't thinking, because then I had to go out and pitch the next inning. And then, as a pitcher, you kind of get mad when a guy would kind of pimp you running around after a home run or something and taking his time, this or that. When I got rounded home, my heart was beating so fast. I can't remember my heart beating that fast at anything I've ever done before in my life, athletically. So I had to go sit up in the hallway, let my heart calm down before I can go back out and pitch the next inning. I'm going, okay, I know what that feels like now. Now I know why those guys get so excited when they hit a home run. Because maybe back then you had 20 home runs and 600 at bats. You were having a great year, so you kind of got that feeling on how they feel that.
One of the questions is that, do you really have a big butt?
Oh yeah. I'm a big fella. So
Tell us about the movies.
Okay, at that time I was giving some pitching lessons at a place called the Grand Slam in Palatine, Illinois, and they made Major League out in California, and Steve Yeager was the consultant for the baseball stuff. So when they were coming here to do it in Wrigley, they got in touch with a scout that we all knew real well. And they came in and started talking to a bunch of us that had played and whether we'd be interested in doing any of this. So they asked me if I'd come in. So I was a consultant on the movie, helping them set the fields up and try to, give them the right ideas on how to do things or how it should be done. And then they asked me if I'd be the pitcher with the big butt, and it was different and interesting to see how movies are made and in the order it's made, how it's all done. So I mean, it was probably about I don't know, 2.5 month production that they did. And it was, I was there pretty much for all of it. So it was kind of interesting to see how it was. It was a lot of fun. So that was good.
So do you have a SAG card?
No, I was the only thing I was in another movie, but I was really pitching. I was in Big also when Tom Hanks went to the game in Big. I just happened to be pitching that time, and a ball came off foul that they thought went that way, so they used me, for that. But other than that, that's the extent of my acting career.
What was it like? I always ask this of all my guests. What is that like when it's time to hang them up? I mean, is that kind of a stage of were you down, or tell us a little bit about where you're like, you know what, this is my last hurrah. After this, I'm out. I mean, what's that like for a professional athlete?
Well, I hate to say, usually it's an injury that usually kind of gets you, something that kind of starts leading you down that path. So I had hurt my arm in New York the year before, and they ended up letting me go right at the end of the year. And then the next year I came back and I played with Cleveland a little bit, but never really came back 100% to where I was. So you kind of knew it was kind of on the verge. You're hoping to get healthy and kind of get back into your normal form. But yeah, you also know as you get older, it just doesn't happen quite as easily. So it was disappointing, but that's when you kind of step away. So I kind of stepped away, and you go home and you start spending time with your kids, which you never really get to do when you're playing. And it ended up, matter of fact, during we were making that movie, I ran into Paul Stevens, who was the head coach at Northwestern. That's how I got into coaching. He asked me if I'd come over there. So it was a couple of years off, played golf a lot, during that off time, and then started coaching. And now I love doing that, working with young men and helping them to try to live out a dream.
Who did you hate to face as a pitcher? Like, you knew you had the confidence, you knew you could strike out anybody, you knew you could get an out, but who you're like, damn it, I don't want to pitch to this guy?
The guy that I think probably hit me the hardest of my whole career was Tom Bernanke with Minnesota. Now, I did great against Kirby Puckett and Ken Herbick and Gary Gaiati, who was in the middle of that order. But for some reason, Tom hit me hard all the time. Now, they weren't always hits, but I'm going to say majority of the time, the outfielder had his back up against the wall catching it. And he hit it hard. It didn't matter what I threw or where I threw it. He just, and we, became friends and talked, and he just says, Tim, I just saw you so well. I just knew what was coming and where it was. And and that was, I finally got him out. I broke his bat, and that's when I got released. But wow, finally get him out. I should have let him hit a home run or something. Who knows?
Is Major League Baseball really good at taking care of you guys in retirement?
I mean, there's pensions, the whole scenario. I mean, you're offered the insurance, and the insurance is tremendous. You got to pay for it, but I would say yes. Living in Chicago, I do things with the Cubs or when the White Sox ask. There's always things to do and help out. There's always charity events that you get to play in that, for golf, things like that you do because you want to give back somehow, and that's kind of a way to give back. But also it's a great time to kind of catch up with everybody that's kind of gone off and kind of done their own thing in that area. So, but yeah, baseball has been great. I can't complain whatsoever. Um, I wish I was playing now instead of back then because of the money, but, but that's everybody. Even when I was playing, you saw it climb, you know, exponentially as it went. So, yeah, they take good care of you.
Tell us a little bit, how has the game, what's your opinion on how the game of college basketball has changed, and how has the game of baseball changed since you've been out?
Well, the biggest thing with college basketball, I think, is the three-pointer. They went in trying to get, more scoring and this or that, but, percentages aren't there. To me, you go look at the teams that are winning all the time. They're guys that are constantly going in and out, things like that, and not constantly firing up three-point shots. So to me, that's probably the biggest thing. We didn't have a shot clock back then. We didn't have that, but we had David Thompson. We had David Thompson and we had Tommy Burleson, 7'4". So we had both ins and out covered pretty well. So to me, that's probably the biggest thing. I don't think it really helped the scoring go up as much, but they wanted to add more excitement, this or that. So that's what they did. Baseball, now, you see the shifts, everything. When I played for Earl Weaver had note cards where he had everything on how he wanted to play or who he wanted to pitch, things like that. Now there's computer printouts. There's so much more support staff, the computers, the video, all that, the things to help you get stronger. You see all that, the percentages on, I still don't like the shifts in Major League Baseball, but you see them and they're doing them and, they're happy with them. And to them, it seems to work, I guess. The batting averages have gone down, so obviously it's working. So that's probably it. I think guys throw a little bit harder on a general basis just because, the technology and the strengthening and everything is a lot different. We didn't have all the bands and the drive lines and all those things that they have now, the Rapsodo and things like that check the spin of the ball. So it's just become more sophisticated. And, they've learned how to use it.
I interviewed Phil Spence, and he was talking about how much of a, you said earlier about a group text with the rest of your Wolfpack teammates, but the university really still embrace you guys. And, when you guys want to get together, when you guys want to come to a game, they still enjoy that and still roll out the carpet for you guys.
Obviously, I'm not down there, but those guys go all the time. I think David that probably doesn't miss too many games. But I know those guys go all the time. There's been times throughout, even when I was still playing baseball, they would come back, honor the team, things like that. And I'm sure if we're all still kicking in the next few years, 50 years is coming up. So I'm sure they'll try to bring us back and do things. Scary, isn't it? 50 years. But yeah, they've always treated us well there. Baseball has treated me well there also, doing things. So, they keep you informed. They're constantly, if you want to go to a game, do stuff. Whenever I'm there, I try to get back and see things, obviously. I know the guys that are living there, they follow it, very, very closely.
Okay. So I started out my program with mostly basketball interviews because, in 49 other states, it's just basketball, but, this is Indiana. What was it like to get a phone call to let you know that you had been inducted into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame?
An honor. It's just, obviously that's one of those things that, for the high school, the state, that, what more can you ask for? So I was overly joyed, and it was a pleasure to get in there. They put our team in, I've been in individually. So that's definitely a great honor to be involved with Indiana basketball.
And they're building a big building down in Evansville, which is going to be home to the Indiana Sports Hall of Fame, which you've also been inducted to also.
Yes, I found that out. My problem is I won't be able to get down there because I'm coaching at North Central College now. It's a really good D3 program just outside Chicago, and that's all going to happen during our season. So I make a commitment to the kids to coach and be with them. So I will be there. But yes, it is definitely an honor, and I wish them all the best luck.
You know, when you play a sport for so long, is there, you know, and you've been coaching for so long now since retiring from Major League Baseball. Do you ever get tired of the game?
No. And it's the people in the game. It's the people in the game. I mean, as long as the players and the young men respond and want to listen and learn and at least act like they care what I'm saying, then I would like to keep doing it. I mean, I really enjoy it. I enjoy working with them. I think it keeps me younger. When you're dealing with 18, 19, and 20-year-old kids all the time, you kind of got to keep thinking pretty quick and young. So I really enjoy it. It's fun. I just really, I'm considered a part-time guy. I show up for games and practice. I don't have to do all the NCAA paperwork and all the recruiting forms and all that kind of stuff. So it's just the coaching part, and I'm having a great time doing it.
You know, Tim Stoddard has been with us. We know we can probably do a Ken Burns 10-part series on this if we wanted to, because of all the memories that you have up there. But we kept you a little long. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on the Keeping the Nostalgia Alive show. I appreciate you. And we thank you so much.
Hey, Billy, thanks a lot, and good luck with everything you're doing.